Hello and welcome. This is Working Class to World Class. But before we go any further, I do have a little favour of you. If you could hit that follow or subscribe button, then that would be a massive help. Thank you. In this episode, I had the absolute pleasure of spending time with a lady that is living proof that no matter your background, no matter how much the odds are stacked against you, if you have a dream, you can almost achieve the impossible. What you do need is a bit of tenacity. This lady has risen to be Global Chief Digital Officer for one of the largest marketing groups in the world. She also works with some of the biggest brands that you've ever heard of. Do you know what? She's just a really, really nice person, and she is living proof that nice people can do really well in life. Breaking through the barriers of adversity. I'm Lynn Lester, and this is Working Class to World Class. Okay, Debbie, it's so nice to be here. It was nice for me to escape Glasgow, I have to say, to come to London. So yeah, really good to catch up.
Likewise, I'm really happy to be here with you.
Yeah, well, I'm going to put you through your paces in a second. Well, not quite, I'm joking. So really the whole essence of what we're doing here is really to talk about that story of how people went from their sort of humble start to where they are now. And how the heck did that happen? So to give people an insight, there's going to be loads of people that are watching this that know you anyway, because you're amazing.
Thank you.
But for the people that don't know you, who are you and what is it you do?
Okay, so obviously Debbie Ellison, I'm the Global Chief Digital Officer for VML Y&R Commerce. We're a WPP agency, and my role really is to help build out our capability to be responsive and agile to clients' kind of changing business needs, specifically in the digital commerce arena. So whether that's kind of helping them with e-commerce, marketplace solutions, direct to consumer, launched a new capability a couple of years ago, Social Commerce Plus. It looks strategically around how we can help clients kind of leverage the power of social to drive purchase and to drive business growth. And then in a few weeks' time, I'm launching an immersive physical space here in Sea Container House that really helps clients understand the power of connected brands, obviously with a huge explosion in different channels where we can kind of reach people, whether that kind of be in physical spaces or digital spaces. It can be quite overwhelming for clients and their brands to understand where they play, how they should play, as well as how they become kind of more culturally relevant to the people that are interacting with their brands. So that physical space is all around how we can develop, test and launch experiences across multiple channels that make sense for brands today.
Okay, so that sounds really impressive. There's lots of people watching that that are not even from the marketing industry. So to distill that down, you basically help companies that are selling stuff to the market, and you help them do it in a really cool, innovative way.
Absolutely.
So I'm just sort of dumbing it down for people who are like,
that's really good. I'm going to use that when I talk to my mum about what I do.
There'll be loads of people going, what? So basically you've got a very senior job is what we're saying here. And you've obviously went through a journey over many years to be what you are today. But I guess, there was a time when that probably never seemed even possible. Like you look at yourself back then and you look at yourself now. So let's go back to then. So where were you born?
So I was born in the Royal Free Hospital. Actually, it was a hospital that my mum worked in. She came over to the UK from the Philippines, met my father who was living in France and had moved here for his art. I have always been a North Londoner.
And what's it like in North London? Bearing in mind I'm from Glasgow, but I hear things about North London, but what's it like?
It's really lovely. It's very green. There's, for those Londoners, there's always like a bit of a joke around a north-south divide. I'm okay to straddle the both because my husband's from South London, and I always say that the air gets slightly lighter down there. But North London's a lovely place to be, and I've always kind of dotted around where I've lived has always been kind of in North London. And so me and my family have always been kind of real advocates of North London. The parks are amazing. The spaces are amazing. We really love it.
Yeah, it sounds great. I must go and visit.
You're more than welcome to pop over.
I'll come for tea next time. So
perfect.
You obviously were born there, and what kind of school did you go to, or just that kind of upbringing? What was it like?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, my mum came over. She had kind of followed a guy that had kind of gone to the Philippines and was looking for, Filipino women that could work in homes as nannies or as cleaners, and she came over with him, and I think at a very young age, and I think if that had happened today, like probably wouldn't have landed as well as kind of what happened there. But then she kind of studied she studied nursing, and she was working in the Royal Free. And so I actually ended up going to a nursery and a preschool right by the hospital. And I still remember it actually really clearly, weirdly enough, even though I'm pretty old now. And the school was amazing. So I remember very, very small classes, really, really great education. And I actually think it was like a brilliant start to kind of my education, and then also kind of how I viewed education in a way of being a really strong foundation for everything that I had wanted kind of in my life. So small classes, really attentive, engaging teachers, and I think it really did kind of impact me really positively, that experience. It was also in Hampstead, though. In Hampstead, which you might not know, is a hugely wealthy area in North London. And so already from a really young age, I could see the disparity between the lives that my friends were living and the life that I was going back to kind of every day as well.
Yeah. So what was it? Like, what kind of life did they have versus you?
I think, I mean, I went to preschool in Hampstead, I went to primary school in Hampstead, and the friends that I had were living in mansions in Hampstead, they had pool houses, and I was kind of going back to a 2-bed, council flat in and maybe the not so nice part of North London, and from a very early age. To be honest, I didn't like it. I felt very out of place. I felt I could really feel the disparity between the haves and the have-nots.
Yeah.
And I was a have-not.
And did people treat you differently because you were, in their eyes, or maybe you were or weren't different, but did your friends treat you differently because you didn't have that big, rich house?
I think my close friends, not intentionally, but there were a couple of moments for me where I still to this day am like impacted by certain situations. So I remember when I made new friends at school, the mums who would drop their children off would be like, is it safe to park outside? It was just like, it just felt, and I know I could feel it wasn't intentional, but to hear that like does have an impact kind of on you. And then I remember, as we were moving into kind of the 11 plus years and all of my friends were going to private school, they were getting private tuition and they were going through the whole rigmarole of getting prepped to take the 11 pluses. And again, I could feel like the disparity between, I guess, how they were being conditioned for a life of success and that I wasn't necessarily on the same flight path.
Yeah, that must have been hard because I can imagine, I know what it's like when I was at school, my parents were older. So for me, that was really different, but we were very close. So with this going on, and obviously your friends are, privately educated, they've got the big mansion, pool, oh my God, sounds great. Parties would have been great.
The parties are awesome.
But how did that sort of mould the relationship with you and your mum? Like, were you, bearing in mind you're a kid, right? So we're looking through the lens of a child here. Did you ever think, God, why couldn't you give me more? Or did you never think like that?
Oh God, I did. And I actually I am so guilty even to this day that I put so much pressure on my mum to try and afford me the same opportunities. And I think back as a mother now, and I think, I don't know how she dealt with that. I was really bolshy. I was really angry that, my friends got to live this amazing life, and then I would spend all day with them, do sleepovers, and then come back and I'd be like, you could literally fit our flat in one of their bathrooms. It was I found that really difficult to deal with. But I'm also really grateful for that experience because it had exposed me to a life and a way of being, and to a hunger or a thirst for wanting to, not to be in those circles, not to emulate the wealth, but to realise that there could be a pathway out of where we were. And I saw that pathway out was through education. So I put a lot of pressure on my mum to support me applying to private schools. I know that she didn't find that experience fantastic at the time, and I don't know if it's different now, but they used to have to interview the parents as a part of your application. And I know that for some of those schools, they were asking her what she did, and she was saying that she was a nurse. And I remember her coming back one day saying, yeah, I really didn't like how I was being spoken to. I really didn't like that experience. So I know it was really difficult for her.
Yeah.
Really difficult for her.
Your mum sounds amazing.
I get emotional when I talk about my mum, because I think that as a young woman who'd come over from the Philippines, who really grafted, she worked 2 jobs. So she worked in the NHS, but she also did private work on top of that. And she just got on with life. Like, she was a grafter, and she just genuinely didn't let anything stop her, impact her. And I know absolutely that it's positively shaped my sister and I. She's super resilient. She never thinks that there is something that somebody can't achieve. And she doesn't pander to people that have excuses. And so I think it's been amazing that she's managed to shape so positively and give my sister and I so many opportunities when working 12-hour shifts in a really heavy, demanding, physically demanding, emotionally demanding job. Yeah. I just don't know. Even now, I don't know how she did it. I don't know. I don't think I could ever do it. And I'm so grateful.
Yeah, well, you can absolutely tell. I mean, it's funny because when you talk about, so there's 2 things, isn't there? You talk about the kind of richer family and your own mum, who sounds like a real diamond. And you think, actually, when you look back, whilst your friends were the things that you wanted to be, you wanted that house, you wanted that, maybe not the wealth, but you wanted success and to get out of the 2-bedroom flat eventually. I bet you learned so much from your mum, because being that grafter, being a nurse, like my sister's a nurse, so working frontline with people who really need help, like genuine human beings, So I guess, when you look back now, do you think your hustle and where you got to in life was probably more from your mum than actually what your friends had?
Completely, absolutely. I think, my mum grafted and was able to buy her own property when she turned 40. And I know emotionally that was a huge, huge thing for her. Like, it's not about the physical. It's not about the physical assets. It isn't about the wealth, as you were saying. For us, it has always been a marker and a manifestation of everything that we've worked hard for as a family. And I'm genuinely proud of her, and I know that we're genuinely grateful for her and her positive impact on who we are today.
Amazing. So she obviously gave you the foundation to be the wonderful person that you are now. And then, obviously you were with your sister, and so I didn't realise you had a sister.
Yeah, we're super close.
Yeah.
So all the time that my mum was working, actually, I did a lot of the care for my sister. So my mum would always say, if you go out with your friends, you're taking your sister. I mean, it's like, it's part cultural thing. It's like the eldest always looks after the youngest. But what has been great about that is that we're super close. She's 4 years younger than me. I joke that sometimes she still makes me read her emails before she sends them out. So, definitely a parental role. I went to her parents' evenings. I was the one kind of giving her teachers a really hard time about their lack of effort in supporting my sister. So yeah, we are really, really close, and I'm super grateful for that.
Cool. So I mean, it sounds as if whilst maybe you didn't have the same luxuries, you had a really good upbringing because you were loved and you had really good people about you. And you were talking about school being that sort of, you realised that was your kind of gateway, if you like, to a good future. Were you good academically at school?
Yeah, I was actually. I think just because I was a bit of a nerd and also genuinely because I just had so much time on my own that and we didn't have, oh my God, it makes it sound like I was raised in like prehistoric times, but obviously we didn't have like gaming consoles. We didn't really watch too much TV. So, you know, I was either creating, my dad is an artist, and so he'd bring back, you know, his oil paints and his spare canvases, and me and my sister just used to paint over the weekend. Or that, you know, I used to read. I used to read a lot, and I used to teach myself a lot and teach my sister a lot. So I was a nerd. Even at preschool, I remember being awarded like these great big like medals, like medal cups, and I used to come home. And I think what was really funny is my mum didn't gas me up for any of that. I'd come home with this like medal that was almost bigger than my upper torso, and I'd be like, "Look, Mum." She'd like, "Yeah, put it on the shelf." So I think what was funny about that was that I was always trying to better myself, to just win in the loosest sense of the term, and work really, really hard. And I was a nerd.
You don't come across like a nerd, but hey,
nerds can be good things. I say that to my children all the time.
Love nerds.
It's good. Yeah,
love nerds.
Exactly.
So the thing is, you were then learning, right? So you've, you know, where you came from, you start then learning the little wins, right? So you're being awarded at school, you're being recognised, you've got attention. It's like, I'm doing okay in the context of where you were. Mm-hmm. So what happened next? So after school, did you then go into further education, or what did you do? Yeah,
so I convinced my mum to let me take the 11 pluses for the private schools that all my friends were applying for, and I got a bursary to go to Queen's College. So girls' school that is on Harley Street, which I absolutely loved. At the time, not the most diverse of schools, I have to say, but then private education isn't the most diverse. But I found a little clique that I loved. I'm still really good friends with the girls that I made friends there. But really cognizant that my mum still had to pay those fees, although it was lower than what everyone else had to pay. But it was nearly 60% of my mum's total salary to send me there. Oh. So it was really... like she never made me feel that. But I remember when I was giving her a hard time that she wouldn't give me money to buy a dress to go to a party. She actually sat me down and walked through the finances of the household, and she was like, "Well, this is what I pay for your school. This is what I pay for rent. This is what I pay for food." And there was like £50 left, and I was like, "Can't I have that?" And I don't know. She put up with me. I'd have probably sold me. I don't know, but I know it was hard.
Yeah,
I know it was hard.
I think the thing is as well, it's hard to beat yourself up, because I think as teenagers and kids in general, we're selfish. Selfish and don't think of the big picture. And you know, it's easy to say that now in retrospect, looking back. But what then did you have to sacrifice? So you know, all the money pretty much was going to feed you, to put a roof over your head, to give you the education and the springboard. What didn't you get because of all of that?
What was sacrificed was our ability to come out of that council home more quickly than I probably think my mum would have liked.
Yeah. And did you get to go holidays or things like that?
So my dad was raised in the south of France, so we used to drive down there a couple of times a year. My mum went back to the Philippines every other year. So it really didn't feel as though we were missing out on experiences. My mum was really, really good with that.
Yeah. And I guess the other thing that always strikes me as interesting, particularly, you know, when you get into sort of private school. So I'm not, you can maybe tell, I did not go to private school. But the thing is, when you're mingling with people who maybe are a bit more confident because they have the money and they can do what they like, and that's not an object, do you think it changes how you behave in your own family circles, or did you have to behave in two different ways, or were you just you?
I think I was just me. I think what was great was, for me, what was valuable was seeing another way of life. But in all honesty, a lot of those girls were really unhappy. You know, even at the time, 14, 15, some of them were already having plastic surgery. A lot of them were on drugs. A lot of them were stealing when they didn't have to steal. And so I was looking at that and I was like, oh my goodness, you've got everything. You've got everything. You've got access. You've got credit card. You know, you've got credit cards. You've got absolutely everything. And still, perhaps you're not as happy as I might have expected you to be.
Yeah.
And so I think it was, again, just a life lesson that everyone, regardless of where you're from or what experiences that you have, everyone can be experiencing things that you've got no idea about.
Yeah. And actually, you know, that's a really good point, because I think being working class, what we have in common is you start recognising things in people that maybe others don't see. So you know what, not unhappiness, you weren't unhappy, but you were different and that made you unhappy to an extent. But then you could see, well, actually you've got everything and you're blooming unhappy for whatever reason it might be, or you've got something to prove. Do you think the expectations in those children were harder than it was in you? So for example, your mum gave you the opportunity, but the kids that were rich, were their parents more down their throats to do well?
I think it was the other way, actually.
Oh.
I think it was zero expectation about what they were expected to achieve, or of course I'm being hugely generalist, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a huge school, but I think what I took out from that experience was there was a small group of kids who I was hanging out with that were on bursaries or were young women of colour. I mean, literally you could count the number on your hand, who recognised that we were there through pure graft and luck. And I know that sounds like a bit of a oxymoron, right? But I feel that. And so whilst we were like normal kids and we were normally naughty, but we knew that we were there to achieve something. Whereas I think that some of the other children that were there, again, not being too generalist, but some of the other children that were there didn't have the same pressures. Like if you know that your mum is dedicating whatever percentage it is of her total salary just for you to be there, there is regardless of whether there is a spoken pressure about that. There is a pressure about that.
Yeah, no, definitely. And that's I think what makes you who you are and human, because you owe it to her. Like you can't really fail. So yeah, I totally get that sort of pressure you put on yourself. And then, so you went through school. Did you do okay grade wise? And then what happened after that?
Yeah. So yes, like as I said, I wasn't the best of children. Like so, you know, there were normal teenage angst, and I was very, very headstrong. Very headstrong. Again, I don't know how my mom just didn't leave me out on a corner somewhere. But I did really well academically, and I was lucky enough that by the time I was moving into GCSEs, we were the only girls' school that was offering computing as a GCSE. And so I kind of, just on a whim, applied to be in the class and study it. They only had 4 places on the class because our teachers were consultants still. They were working consultants, so that it was a bit of a part-time job for them. But I remember the computer teacher, he used to like drive up to the school on a BMW motorbike, and I was like, mate, I want some of that. So I was like, yeah, let me just interview. And I remember him saying, even to this day, I remember him saying in the interview, Debbie, why do you want a place on this course? And I was like, because you look like you're living life, and I want to live life too. And he was like, I don't know how I got in, but he gave me a place on the GCSE course. I did it for GCSE. I did it. I got an A. I did it for A level. I just found a knack for developing for computing. I just really, really loved it, and I think it married a bit of the logic side of my brain with my creative side of the brain, and I loved it. So I did it at A level. I did it at university. I did computing and business at university. I had my daughter when I was 19, so second year of university. yeah, I think the rest is a little bit of history.
Yeah. So, I mean, your mum must have been dead proud. Can you imagine that? Like, she's gone from being a nurse, and which is, by the way, one of the most important jobs that we have in the world. But, you know, she's done that, and she's looked at her daughter, and she's like, my God, she's a university graduate. That must have been like tugging at the heartstrings.
I don't know, to be honest. She's not one of those, like, I love her dearly, but she's not the most communicative of people. I mean, she shouts a lot, but that's just standard for Filipinos. They just talk at a high decibel. But she wasn't overly, like, love it. Like, she wouldn't say, oh my God, you're amazing, or you've done really well. She'd be like, yeah. So it always made you want to do more, want to do bigger and better, because you kind of just want to, like, tell me I'm good. Like, so I don't know. I think it was a big hit when she found out that when I told her that I was pregnant.
I can imagine, and you know, talk me through that, because you know you've done your bit. I mean, were you happy to sort of have your baby at that age, or of course you're happy. I mean, why wouldn't you be? But you know, in terms of where did it stall you or hold you back in terms of where you were?
No, because I didn't let it. My mum was really clear that it wouldn't, like, it shouldn't. So I'm still with my husband now, who's the dad of Renee. So it really wasn't easy. I felt that I was letting my mum down for sure. But actually I had no idea what I was getting myself into. It was really difficult being at university, and actually the third year of my university course was work experience. So I was actually, I had a placement at GSK down in Stevenage, and so raising a baby, working, studying was tough, was really tough.
Yeah. And I guess seeing, like, you know, obviously you had your placement, different things. For people looking at you, did they hold you back? So now it's very accepted when you have a baby in the workforce. Yeah, let's support mothers. And were you supported?
I mean, yes, my mum was amazing looking after Renee and, you know, providing wraparound care. And, you know, for a while we were living with her. So it was easier.
Yeah.
I had amazing friends at university who would, you know, as soon as I had given birth, were driving down and dropping me papers and helping me out. I was really lucky. I was really, really lucky. I think, I'm not sure if I felt any stigma at the time around being a young mother. I did as I developed my career.
That's really interesting. I mean, I remember, so my son, you know, I had him when I was 23, and I always, we look quite young. I think I put it down to the Scottish water. But, you know, it was one of those things where I always remember being pregnant, and I couldn't afford to buy maternity clothes. I had to wear bigger sizes, which were misshaped.
Me too. Luckily, I was thin then. It was easy.
And I remember people looking down at me, like literally looking at me as if I was a slag or something, or a young underage mum, or whatever it might be. And that's how they made me feel. It certainly was not the case, but that's how I was made to feel. And I don't know, you know, you're saying you were very supported, but, you know, you didn't have the mat clothes to wear and whatever. But when you said later on there was a stigma, what did you mean by that?
When I came especially into this industry, into the marketing industry, it was still really old school. And so a lot of the women in the industry were young, didn't have any ties, were going out drinking after work. It was like everything that you would think of like an advertising culture was absolutely there. And I think it was the next juncture in my life where I felt really out of place, because I couldn't work all night through the night on pitches. I couldn't go out drinking after work. There were lots of things that were so embedded in the culture of the advertising industry that I just couldn't engage in. And for a long time, again, because I was quite junior, I didn't feel like I could be honest and say why, or I found definitely the push me, pull me of home and work life really, really difficult. And it's why I'm so empathetic to women in business today, especially younger women who are raising children, and who in the majority, I hate to say it, but who in the majority are still doing all of the homework, all of the child rearing, as well as trying to keep down and be successful at a full-time job. I'm really, really empathetic to those women who try that. I've seen a lot of women cry in the toilets at work because they can't do it all. And I feel like we have to be better to help support women who are going through that.
Yeah. But let's just go back a little bit. So obviously you went to uni, you get the GSK placement. So sort of that point into work, why you? Right, so why, how could Debbie do it? And, you know, there's only 4 places. You know, and obviously you answered really well. But do you think it was the hustle in you that got you there?
When I put my mind to things, I get it done. And that could have only come, actually, I would say that could have only come from my mother. My dad's pretty similar as well. I like to think that if I want something, I will do everything I can to get it. Not in that sounds pretty not like that, but I just mean that I don't let distractions come in the way. Like I always think, why not? Like, why can't this happen? And then often isn't a reason why things can't happen. So but I also think I have a really glass half full mentality. So like I'll put myself in situations just because you never know what will come out of it. I always say yes to things. I know, like sometimes it's to my detriment because I don't have enough hours in the day or whatever, but like I do random things and get myself involved in so many things that shouldn't really fall in my remit. Because I'm interested in it, and I like, you know, and I think I could add value, but you know, also because I like to see things get done. I like to deliver.
You do, and you do deliver. You've won lots of awards, so you definitely deliver. And here's the thing, right? So you've come, you got the taste of the good life, you know, when you were hanging about with these people and different things, and you know, and you were very balanced because you can see both sides of the coin. So you're now in a corporate world, right? You've earned your way there.
Right. Yeah.
But did you ever feel as if you didn't belong? Like in terms of, did you have loads of imposter syndrome or?
Oh my God, massively. The industry in general is still full of the haves. The way that they sometimes, especially in the early days, not now, I mean, it's so much better now, but definitely in the early days, you know, you'd be in a cab driving to a client pitch or something, and everyone would laugh about, you know, the council estate that you were passing or whatever, and go, that's where the Chads live. And it's like, okay, you know, that's where I am. And I wouldn't say it, but I'd be like, that's how you think about people like me. And it's not a nice feeling. And you know, you couple that with the fact that you're a young mom, and like I hadn't felt comfortable to tell my story until very, very late in my career. I do think that as you get older, you care less. I nearly swore there. You care less about what people think. But it's why I also encourage people to tell their stories. It's why I'm telling my story today, right? Because I think sometimes you can think you're the only person that has trodden that path. You're the only person to have felt like that. You're not. When I think back on it, though, I realise like how grateful I am.
Yeah.
Like I think back to being a kid in that council estate, and I think, and all I ever wanted was just a house with a garden. Like that's it. I was just like, I'll be winning if I have a house with a garden. And I like, my mum has that, I have that, and it's like I keep going back to, it's not the material things. It's not. It's the fact that it's a marker that all of that graft, all of that energy, all of that focus you've achieved what you set out to achieve. And I was just always like, my children will never experience that. Like, I didn't want my children to ever experience that life. I didn't want them to feel embarrassed about where they came from or what they could have and what they couldn't have. Like, everyone will have various levels of that, right? But for me, it's that emotional marker that, yeah, like, I've done it. And I kind of think back to that young girl and all the times I cried to my mum, and I'm just like, it's so not fair. Like, how have they got this and we don't have that? And I think back to that little girl, and I kind of just want to say, it'll be okay. Like, you did okay.
You did more than okay. And the thing is, you're really respected. So that's the thing, you know, which I love about you, is you remain really humble, and you can tell that even although you're super successful, you've got a global role. Jesus, you know, you work for one of the biggest, most respected companies in the advertising marketing industry, and you're leading it. And so you're proof to everyone that little girl who didn't have much has everything now. You know, and I guess it's a really important thing to impart on your children, as you said, because probably what you don't want to do is make them think they're privileged. It's like, no, you're probably like your mum. No, do a bit harder, then I'll tell you were good. So when you went, I'm interested to know, so when you got your placement, how did you then, did you stay there for quite a while, or where did you move after that?
So I had a year placement, and then we had a year to finish off kind of the university course. And then, I went into a graduate role at a company based in Hemel Hempstead. It was a software IT company. They were building out all the systems for the Met Police to do the roadside checks, etc. They were the leading provider of HR systems, so payrolls, all the kind of systems that manage benefits. And I was really lucky to have an amazing mentor when I was there, who eventually kind of built an e-com team, of which he was like, Debs, you're going to be part of this. And I was like, okay, sure, why not? And he basically rounded all the graduates up, formed kind of this e-com team, and we were basically the cool kids in the company. I hate to say it, but everything you think about kind of developers, like, it was there. And then you had these like young 20-year-olds who just thought, like, fresh out of university, just thought that they could rule the world. And we did. We were like one of the first teams to do live streaming for live events. We were the team that turned all of the HR systems into online systems that organizations could take advantage of. Even back in that day, we were doing flexible benefits, which is only just really rolling out across markets now in Angst, but we were one of the first teams to kind of be able to do that. And so, like, I loved it. I really, really loved it. You know, at the time, like, the industry, the e-com industry, the internet industry was full of money. So we were working on like £3 million projects with like practically zero experience. We were building multi-million pound e-commerce platforms. It was really good times.
Wow, it sounds great. And also, probably at that age, you were like, how do you write 3 million? How many zeros does that have?
Completely. I mean, you just couldn't grasp it, right? Like, it was just, you know, all of us were allowed like car allowances, and we were told, all of us, you know, you have to buy a car with a hard top, and it has to, you know, given loads of guardrails. And then all of us bought convertibles. There was one guy who bought a Lotus Elise which had a removable hard top. I mean, I bought a soft top, so it kind of just came down into the boot. But he bought a removable hard top. So, like, this was really not on spec, and it was really not what we were supposed to do. But we all had swagger. Like, it was really, really fun times. And we basically secured a space in the office which we called Econ Valley, and we had carte blanche to order whatever furniture we wanted, whatever devices we wanted. It was really good times.
So now you were becoming the spoiled kid. and I hope you went back to that lecturer and said, you know, the car you drove up in? Look at mine now.
I mean, it was just great also for, if I think what's stands me in good stead today, which is, especially in the world of technology and digital, nothing stays the same. So you're constantly learning. And it's quite different to most other skills that you build up. So like, it was just always a, well, how hard could this be type mentality? Like, someone must have done it before, or, you know, we'll get to do it. And it was just great, really great.
It's amazing. So, I mean, what a journey, right? I mean, let's face it, it's been pretty special. But how do you make sure that you don't get above your station and forget where you came from?
Quite easily, in the family that I've got. So I still joke. I think my husband still thinks I'm a PA, because I did PA whilst I was at university to earn some extra money. I think, thankfully, because of the pandemic, he's actually seen that I actually do work. Like, you know, my whole family is really humble, really, really humble. I think it helps that they don't understand what I do. So that's really good. I think, in all seriousness, our experiences shape us, right? And I think for a long time, I wasn't happy because I'd felt as though I think social mobility is one of the hardest things to grapple with, actually. When we talk about that space of kind of diversity and inclusion, I think it's one of the hardest things to have to deal with. And so I always think back to your point, where we started. And part of a lot of what drives me is wanting to make sure wanting to help others, especially if they feel unhappy. Because I think just life's too short. You know, I always say to my teams, you can never reach your potential if you're not happy. You can never reach your potential if you don't believe that you have a right to be in the spaces that you're in.
Yeah. And I think, do you know, the really good point in that was when you were saying about your rich friends, many of them weren't happy. And actually, sometimes when we talk about success, people have it in their head as money. I think to me, money is the root to all evil, to be quite honest. I don't mind being able to afford stuff, but
I was going to say,
I was going to say, like, I'm going to renege a little bit on that. But you know,
everyone knows I've got a shoe fetish, and you need money for that. So I'm not sure I can agree.
You do. You have really good shoes, I have to say. So, I mean, what advice do you think you would give to people? So here, put it, you know, in layman's terms. You were lucky, right? Your mum gave her heart and soul to give you what you have today, which is, I hope she gets the best Christmas presents ever.
She does. She always tells me, Debs, return this. I don't want this. Yeah, I try.
So, but you know, she gave you everything. Not everybody's that lucky. So people from that council estate you were in probably didn't have a mum that was willing to do that or could do that for whatever reason. So to the kids, what advice would you give to them who cannot imagine this world?
It's why I started the incubator. So the incubator is our work experience program for 16 to 18-year-olds. And I guess the differentiator to that program is that we are reaching out to young people, not university graduates, young people from local communities that want to experience the corporate world, or give them the opportunity to experience the corporate world. And it's almost a shortcut to everything that we've spoken about today. So the program is a 2-week program where they spend time with our C-suiters and our heads of capability. So they go straight to the top. They get training from all of those people, including myself. They work on a client pitch brief, and they get to pitch. And for me, it's emulating, but shortening that exposure, to be able to get those kids to see that, yeah, it might be a different life, that's okay, but it's a life that it's an experience that you can have. It's a life that you can have if you want it. And I think it's getting harder, not easier, for the kid that was Debbie to get to, or to have those experiences. And so I'm really proud of that program, and developed it with our amazing people team. our global people director and our people director here in the UK, to be able to offer that to students. And I think what's really interesting is those students come in and, you know, you talk to them and they're looking at the floor and you're like, May, like, come on. And some of them are shy. And I always think every year, Lynn, I think, oh my God, this is going to be a disaster, absolute disaster. They're not going to turn up. I mean, my own child wakes up at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so you're already getting them into the office for 10 o'clock. Every year I think it's going to be a disaster. And honestly, it's the most rewarding, fulfilling experience for our people here and for me to just see the growth of those students from when they come in to when they're pitching. It just makes me well up every single year that we're able to do that. And it's important for me to be able to do that too.
And it's so nice, you're giving back in such a way. And actually, let's be honest, you're probably looking at them and you see you.
Massively.
You know? So here's the thing, right? So I guess what you're seeing through all of this, I mean, that's an amazing project and, you know, initiative that you're doing. I guess what you're saying is grab every opportunity. If you've got an opportunity, grab it. So make sure anyone who's tuning in, I hope you're inundated with requests after this. So to finish up then, tell me 3 things that makes a working class person successful.
Wow, okay. Graft. Like I always say, nothing delivers more so than hard work.
Yeah.
Like everyone will see people in an environment that they think they've managed to get to where they are through whatever means that isn't through hard graft. But I think for you to feel comfortable within yourself, you need to always know that you are delivering your 100%. I think there's a grounding in that will make you feel comfortable, and I think that's really important. Resilience. I think when I look back, there are so many times where I could have just gone, I can't do that. And there have been times, don't get me wrong. You know, I've been that woman in the toilets and calling my husband and going, I can't do this. Like, but you have to just get back up. You have to just keep that focus. It's so rewarding. And love, which is a bit of a curveball for me, but I've been so lucky that many of the leaders that I've worked with, many of the women that I've reported to on my career journey have just been so caring for me, have created spaces for me to step into. And I think if you do things with good intent comes back.
Karma is a wonderful thing.
It is, isn't it?
Thank you so much. This has just been, you know, amazing. I think you're going to inspire so many people with your story. Thank you for being brave. I know it was really difficult at points.
Yeah, I was really worried. I was really nervous. But thank you for making it such a lovely experience. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.